Tom and Mira had been living in a small apartment above a busy street for 3 years. Every morning, car horns and vendor calls filled the air. They both worked long hours and barely had time for rest. Tom repaired electronics in a small shop while Mira worked as a school teacher. Their dream was simple. They wanted a quiet place near the sea where they could wake up to the sound of waves and not the sound of traffic. One Sunday morning, Tom sat at the old wooden table by the window, scrolling through online listings. Most of the houses near the coast were far too expensive. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. Mira brought him tea and smiled softly. She knew that look on his face. It was the same one he had whenever he saw something that felt out of reach. "Maybe we should just keep saving," she said. "We can find something small next year." Tom nodded but kept scrolling. Then something strange caught his eye. It was a photo of a large mansion standing alone on a wide beach. The title read, "Seaside Mansion, $250, sold as is." He frowned and clicked on it. The pictures showed a grand house with tall white pillars, a wide porch and broken windows that faced the ocean. The ad said the mansion once belonged to the Voss family, who had disappeared years ago after being involved in mysterious crimes. It mentioned that the local government now owned the property and wanted to sell it quickly to cover unpaid taxes. Tom blinked in surprise. $250, he whispered. That cannot be real. Mira laughed, thinking he was joking. Maybe it is a typing mistake, she said. They probably meant 250,000. But Tom checked again. The price was real. The listing had only one small condition. The buyer had to take full responsibility for the property and not hold the seller accountable for any damage, hidden structures, or missing items. Most people would have closed the ad and walked away, but Tom was not most people. His curiosity was stronger than his fear. He looked at Mira and smiled. What if it is real? What if this is our chance? Mira shook her head. A mansion for $250 sounds cursed. Tom laughed but sent a message to the number anyway. Within an hour, he received a reply. The seller said the price was correct, and if they could pay immediately, they could take the keys the next day. The decision came faster than either of them expected. By evening, Tom had transferred the money and received the confirmation email. They packed their car the next morning and began the 4-hour drive to the coast. The road was long and mostly empty. As they got closer to the sea, the air turned cooler and salty. Mira watched the waves in the distance, her earlier doubts slowly replaced with excitement. When they finally reached the mansion, the sight took their breath away. The building stood at the end of a narrow road, facing a wide stretch of sand and ocean. The paint had faded and vines crawled up the sides, but the structure still looked strong. Tall palm trees surrounded it, swaying gently in the sea breeze. Tom parked the car and stepped out first. The air was thick with the smell of salt and wet earth. Mira joined him and looked up at the tall windows. Most were covered with dust, but she could see reflections inside, as if something shiny was catching the light. The front door was unlocked. It creaked as they pushed it open. Inside, the air was cool and dry, not damp like they expected. Dust covered the furniture, but everything was neatly arranged. Chairs were still tucked under tables, dishes still sat on shelves, and a chandelier hung from the ceiling with unbroken glass. It looks like someone left in a hurry, Mira whispered. Tom nodded. Or like they planned to come back. He ran his hand over a wooden table. A thin layer of dust covered it, but underneath, the surface was polished and smooth. He found a stack of newspapers near the fireplace. The top one was dated 12 years ago. The headline read, "Voss family declared missing after coastal raid." Mira frowned. "Do you think they really disappeared?" Tom shrugged. "If the government owns this now, then maybe they did." They moved from room to room, each more fascinating than the last. There was a wide living room with red curtains, a library filled with books in old languages, and a kitchen that looked untouched. The pantry still had jars of salt, rice, and canned food, though everything was long expired. Mira walked up the main staircase while Tom explored the lower floor. On the second floor, she found a long hallway lined with portraits. Each painting showed members of the same family wearing elegant clothes. One face in particular caught her attention. It was a young woman with pale eyes and a small golden pendant around her neck. The pendant was shaped like a triangle with moving lines that shimmered faintly. Mira leaned closer and noticed that the paint around the pendant looked fresh compared to the rest of the portrait. She blinked, and for a moment she thought the triangle's lines moved slightly. Downstairs, Tom called out, "Mira, come see this." She hurried down the stairs. He stood by a heavy wooden door that led to what looked like a basement. The handle was rusty, but the door was locked with an old metal latch. Someone had scratched words into the surface. The letters were faint but readable. "Do not wake them." Mira took a step back. "That is strange. Who would write that?" Tom smiled nervously. "Probably a prank. Maybe the workers who left last time." She did not look convinced. "Let us leave that door closed," she said quietly. Tom agreed for now. They continued exploring the first floor. Near the back of the house, they found a study room. Papers were scattered across the desk, filled with strange symbols and sketches of stars, circles, and triangles. One paper mentioned something called Project Tide. Mira picked it up but could not understand most of it. The writing looked like a mix of math and poetry. She set it down and turned toward the window. The view was beautiful. The sea stretched endlessly, and the sun was beginning to set, painting the water in shades of gold and red. Tom smiled. "This could really be our new home," he said. "Imagine fixing it up, painting the walls, opening those windows." Mira nodded slowly. "It is beautiful," she admitted. "But I still feel something strange about this place." That night they decided to sleep in one of the upstairs rooms. The bed was old but clean enough after they laid new sheets. The sound of waves outside was calming. For the first time in months, Tom felt peaceful. But Mira could not sleep easily. She kept hearing faint humming from somewhere inside the house. It was not loud, just a soft vibration that came and went, almost like breathing. At midnight, she got up and looked out the window. The beach glowed faintly under the moonlight. Then she saw something odd. A faint light pulsed near the waterline, as if someone had placed a lantern there. It flashed 3 times, paused, and flashed again. Mira woke Tom. "There is light outside," she whispered. Tom rubbed his eyes and looked. The light was still there, flickering gently. He grabbed a flashlight and went to check. Mira followed, though her heart pounded. They walked through the sand until they reached the spot. There was nothing there. No lantern, no glass, no footprints. Only a small golden pendant lying half buried in the sand. It was the same shape as the one in the painting. Tom picked it up and wiped the sand away. The triangle gleamed faintly even without light. Inside its center, thin lines moved in circles, almost like waves. "This must have belonged to them," Tom said. "The Voss family." Mira stared at it. "It is moving," she whispered. Tom laughed softly. "It is just a trick of the light." But when he held it closer to his chest, the pendant pulsed once and released a faint sound like a heartbeat. The waves crashed harder against the shore, and both of them stepped back in surprise. They returned to the mansion, unsure of what they had found. Mira placed the pendant on the table near the window, not wanting to hold it any longer. Tom tried to calm her. He said it was probably some kind of mechanical jewelry. But even as he said it, he could not explain why the lights in the hallway flickered for a few seconds before returning to normal. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves. Mira looked at the pendant again. It now glowed softly, as if breathing in the dark. "Tom," she said quietly, "what if we should not be here?" He looked at her, then at the glowing pendant. He wanted to answer, but the words would not come. Outside, the ocean's hum grew louder, and the wind blew through the broken windows, carrying with it a whisper that neither of them understood. For the first time that night, Tom felt something cold run down his spine. He closed the window and said, "Let us sleep. We will decide in the morning." But as they lay down again, the hum continued soft and steady, rising and falling with the rhythm of the waves. And far beneath the mansion, something stirred in the dark, as if waking from a long, deep sleep. Tom woke early the next morning. The sun had not fully risen yet, and the ocean waves rolled quietly against the sand. For a moment, everything felt calm, but as soon as he sat up, he noticed the pendant on the table still glowing faintly. It pulsed like a heartbeat, matching the rhythm of the waves outside. Mira was still asleep. Her face looked peaceful, but Tom could tell she had not rested well. She had turned several times during the night, muttering softly in her sleep. Tom stood up and stretched, his mind returning to the strange things from last night. The whispering wind, the flickering lights, and the hum that came from somewhere deep in the mansion. He picked up the pendant again. The metal felt warm against his palm even though the air was cool. When he turned it, the thin moving lines inside shifted again, forming small wave shapes. Tom placed it near his ear, wondering if it made any sound. There was a soft vibration, almost like the gentle hum of an engine underwater. He set it down carefully. Mira woke a few minutes later. She looked tired but alert. "Did you hear the noise again?" she asked. Tom nodded. "It is faint, but yes. I think it is coming from somewhere inside the walls." Mira frowned. "Maybe old pipes or air vents." "Maybe," he said, though he was not sure. They went downstairs to make breakfast. The kitchen smelled faintly of salt and dust. As Tom looked for matches to light the small stove, he noticed a red light blinking near the ceiling. He climbed on a chair to check it and froze. It was a small glass lens no larger than a coin hidden inside the corner beam. "Mira, look at this," he said. She came closer and gasped. "That looks like a camera." Tom touched it gently. The red light blinked twice and then went dark. He looked around the room again and saw another one above the doorway. Then another near the clock. They were everywhere. The mansion was filled with cameras. Tom's stomach tightened. "Someone was watching this place," he said slowly. "Or maybe still is." Mira looked uneasy. "But how? There is no power here." Tom pointed to the walls. "Maybe they had their own system. Maybe batteries or hidden generators. Whoever lived here had money. They could build anything." They decided to check every room again. What they found made their skin crawl. Almost every mirror, lamp, and clock had a small hidden lens. Some were cracked, some were dusty, but many still had faint lights glowing behind the glass. Mira covered one of the mirrors with a cloth. "I do not like this," she said. "It feels like the house is looking at us." Tom agreed. The idea that the house might still be active in some way made him uneasy. He wanted to find the source of power, so they searched until they found a metal panel behind one of the bookcases in the study. Inside were tangled wires and small batteries connected to thin copper tubes that ran through the walls. "This is old technology," Tom said. "But it is working." Mira looked at him. "Can we turn it off?" He nodded. "If I cut one of these main wires, maybe everything shuts down." He pulled a small knife from his pocket and carefully cut through one of the thickest wires. The red lights in the corners blinked once and went dark. The mansion fell silent. They both let out a breath of relief. Mira smiled faintly. Finally, some peace. But the peace did not last long. That afternoon, dark clouds rolled across the sky. The wind picked up, howling through broken windows. Tom decided to check the roof for leaks before the rain began. While he climbed the stairs, Mira stayed in the living room, trying to dust the furniture. She opened the tall cabinet near the fireplace and froze. Inside were shelves filled with old film reels and data drives, each labeled with numbers and dates. She pulled one out. The label read, Room 3, Observation 14. She found an old projector on the bottom shelf and set it on the table. Curiosity pushed away her fear. She loaded the reel and turned the handle. The film flickered onto the wall. The footage was black and white, showing the very same living room. In the video, people were sitting on the couch, laughing and talking. She recognized the woman from the portrait in the hallway, the young woman with the triangle pendant. Around her sat several men and women, all wearing elegant clothes. Then the camera shook slightly, and one of the men turned to look directly into it. For a second, his expression changed from cheerful to serious. He leaned closer to the lens, whispered something, and the film ended abruptly. Mira stared at the blank wall. She rewound the reel and watched that part again. The whisper was faint, but she could make out 3 words. "They are watching us." Before she could replay it again, a loud thud came from upstairs. "Tom," she called. He rushed down, holding a broken roof tile. The storm is starting. What happened? She pointed at the projector. You need to see this. He watched the short film in silence. When it ended, he frowned deeply. Who was filming them? If they were the Voss family, who were they afraid of? Mira shook her head. I do not know. But there are many reels here. Maybe the answers are in them. Tom wanted to check more, but the wind outside grew stronger and rain began to fall heavily. The sound of the waves grew louder, hitting the cliffs below. They decided to close all windows and wait for the storm to pass. The power of nature was fierce that night. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled across the sky. The mansion creaked and groaned under the force of the wind. Mira sat by the window clutching a blanket. Tom tried to act calm, but he could feel the floor trembling slightly, as if the house itself was alive. Then, between two flashes of lightning, they both saw something. For a brief second, a tall shadow moved across the upstairs hallway. It was not the reflection of a tree or curtain. It moved too smoothly, too deliberately. Tom grabbed his flashlight. Stay here, he said. Mira wanted to stop him, but he was already halfway up the stairs. The beam of the flashlight cut through the darkness. He moved slowly, checking each doorway. The hallway was empty, but the air felt colder. As he turned toward the last room, the door creaked open by itself. He stepped inside. It was a guest room with an old bed and a cracked mirror on the wall. The flashlight beam passed over the mirror, and for a split second, Tom saw something behind his reflection. It looked like a man wearing a dark suit standing silently. Tom spun around, but no one was there. He looked back at the mirror, and the figure was gone. His heart pounded. He hurried downstairs. Mira looked at him with wide eyes. What did you see? He hesitated. Maybe nothing. Maybe my mind playing tricks. Mira shook her head. I saw something too. By the stairs, a shadow. They sat together in silence, listening to the storm. The pendant on the table glowed again, brighter this time. The glow spread across the table and reflected in the glass windows. Tom slowly reached for it, but as soon as his fingers touched the metal, a faint whisper filled the room. It was not the wind. The voice was calm and distant, like an echo from underwater. It said something neither of them understood, but it repeated one clear word several times. Awaken, Mira gasped. Did you hear that? Tom nodded. He placed the pendant inside a drawer and closed it tightly. Maybe it is just a recording, he said, though his voice shook. The storm raged outside for hours, but they did not sleep. Around midnight, the lights they had turned off earlier flickered back on by themselves. Every red camera lens began to glow again, one by one, as if the mansion had restarted on its own. Tom stood up quickly. That is impossible. I cut the power. Mira covered her mouth. Tom, the wires. What if there is another source? He grabbed his flashlight and went toward the study again. The panel behind the bookcase was still open. The wires were still cut. But now a faint blue glow came from behind the wall. He pressed his ear against it and heard a low mechanical hum. It is alive again, he whispered. Suddenly, the floor trembled slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling. From somewhere deep below, they both heard a dull knocking sound, slow and rhythmic like someone tapping from under the ground. Mira backed away. Tom, we should leave, he nodded. Tomorrow morning we will go. But when he turned to leave the study, he noticed something new. A small red light was now blinking on the desk. He stepped closer. It was another camera lens, but this one was different. It had a tiny microphone attached. As he leaned in, the lens moved slightly, following his face. Mira saw it too. Her voice trembled. It is watching you. Tom quickly threw a cloth over it. The blinking stopped. The storm began to fade as dawn approached, but the house no longer felt peaceful. Every sound, every shadow seemed alive. Mira packed their bags, insisting they should leave as soon as the rain ended. Tom agreed, though something in him wanted to stay long enough to understand what was happening. Before they left the living room, he checked the drawer where he had hidden the pendant. The drawer was empty. Mira's voice shook. Where is it? Tom searched the floor, the table, and even the couch cushions, but it was gone. Then faintly, they both heard the hum again. It came from the basement door, the one marked with the words, "Do not wake them." The sound was stronger now, deeper and clearer, pulsing like a heartbeat. Mira grabbed Tom's arm. Do not open it, she whispered. Tom stared at the door, his hand trembling near the latch. The air around it shimmered faintly, like heat rising from the ground. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the hum stopped suddenly, replaced by silence so heavy it made their ears ring. Mira turned to Tom. "We are leaving first thing in the morning." He nodded slowly. "Yes, first thing." Morning came slowly. The sky was heavy with mist, and the sea looked calm again after the long storm. The air smelled of salt and wet sand. Tom stood by the window, staring at the beach. He wanted to leave as soon as possible, but his mind kept returning to the strange humming sound from the night before. It had come from the basement, the one place they had not explored yet. Mira was packing their clothes. She looked tired, her face pale from lack of sleep. "We should go now," she said. "I do not want to spend another night here." Tom nodded, but did not move. His eyes stayed fixed on the lower part of the house where the basement door waited. "I know," he said softly, "but I want to see what is down there before we go." Mira stopped packing. "Tom, no. That door was locked for a reason. You saw the warning. Do not wake them." He turned to her. "We already paid for this place. If there is something dangerous or valuable, we should know before leaving. What if it is just an old generator or some stored goods?" Mira shook her head. It did not sound like a machine. Tom looked down. "I will just take a quick look. Then we will go." Mira sighed but followed him anyway. She did not want to be alone in the mansion. They went downstairs together. The air felt colder near the basement door. The faint blue light from under it was still visible, glowing softly against the floorboards. Tom took a deep breath and pulled the latch. The metal felt warm to his touch. The moment the door opened, a gust of cold air rushed out, carrying the scent of sea salt and something metallic. A narrow staircase led downward into darkness. He turned on his flashlight. The beam revealed stone steps covered with dust and cobwebs. The walls were made of rough stone, and water dripped slowly from cracks. Mira held his arm tightly as they walked down. At the bottom, they found a large underground chamber. The ceiling was lined with pipes and wires that disappeared into the walls. In the center stood a large metal cylinder, surrounded by broken glass tubes and rusted panels. The blue light came from cracks in the floor near the cylinder. It pulsed slowly as if alive. Tom looked around in amazement. "This looks like a laboratory." Mira's eyes widened. "But how can this be under a house?" Tom pointed to the machines. "The Voss family must have built this. Maybe they were hiding something here." They walked carefully between the broken equipment. Tables were covered with papers and strange metallic tools. On one wall, a series of monitors were built into the stone, their screens now dead and dusty. Next to them, they found a stack of notebooks filled with strange drawings and notes. Tom picked one up. The writing was neat but hard to read. There were diagrams of the ocean floor, sketches of triangles, and sentences written in short bursts. One line caught his eye. "Energy taken from the tide. Subject contained. Transfer incomplete." He read it aloud. Mira shivered. "Energy taken from the tide? What does that mean?" Tom turned another page. There was a drawing of a glowing figure surrounded by waves, with arrows pointing to a small capsule below it. The words underneath read, "Source found beneath the coast." Mira stepped closer to the large metal cylinder. "Do you think they trapped something here?" Tom ran his hand along the surface of the cylinder. "Maybe, but it looks empty now." As if in answer, a soft vibration moved through the floor. The blue light flickered brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. Mira grabbed Tom's hand. "Let us leave, please." Tom wanted to agree, but curiosity held him in place. He found another notebook and flipped through it. The last entry was short. "Containment broken. Subject escaped. Ocean will not rest." He closed the notebook slowly. "I think something got out from here." Before Mira could reply, the light from the cracks flared suddenly. The whole room glowed blue for a few seconds. They both stepped back, shielding their eyes. When the light faded, they heard a new sound, a soft humming coming from above. Tom looked up. "Do you hear that?" Mira nodded. "It sounds like the walls are humming." They moved toward the stairs, but before they could climb up, a sharp crack echoed from the floor behind them. One of the glass tubes had broken open, releasing a small burst of steam. From inside, a faint shape of light shimmered for a second and disappeared. Mira let out a small cry. "What was that?" Tom did not answer. His heart was pounding. He turned off his flashlight for a moment, and the blue glow became clearer. The cracks on the floor were spreading, forming lines that led toward the stairs. He turned the flashlight back on and pulled Mira toward the exit. "We are leaving now." They hurried up the stairs and closed the basement door behind them. The latch clicked loudly and the glow beneath the door faded. Both of them stood in silence, breathing hard. Mira spoke first. "I told you. That place is not safe." Tom nodded. "You are right. We are leaving now." They grabbed their bags and rushed outside. The morning mist had started to lift and the beach stretched wide and empty. Tom unlocked the car and threw the bags in, but when he turned the key, the engine did not start. He tried again. Nothing. Mira looked around nervously. "We can walk to the main road. Someone will come by." Tom agreed. They started walking, but after a few minutes something strange happened. The sound of the waves changed. It no longer followed the natural rhythm of the tide. It moved in a steady pattern, like a pulse. The air grew heavier. Mira stopped walking. "Tom, do you hear that?" He nodded. "Yes. It is the same sound from the basement." They looked back at the mansion. The windows shimmered faintly in the sunlight. For a second, Tom thought he saw movement inside, a shadow passing by an upper window. Mira pulled his arm. "Do not look back. Let us just go." They walked faster. But as they reached the edge of the property, the sound grew louder. Then, without warning, the pendant appeared again. It was lying in the sand a few steps ahead, glowing softly. Mira froze. "That cannot be. We left it in the drawer." Tom stared at it. "It followed us." He hesitated, then bent down to pick it up. The moment he touched it, the waves behind them rose higher, crashing harder against the rocks. The pendant's glow grew brighter. The air around them filled with a low humming sound, and for a brief moment, Tom saw flashes of images in his mind. People in dark suits, the Voss family standing by the ocean, and a glowing figure rising from the water. He dropped the pendant in shock. "It is showing me something," he said breathlessly. "Like a memory." Mira stared at him. "What did you see?" "Experiments," he said. "They were trying to control something from the sea." Before they could speak further, the pendant floated a few inches above the ground and began to spin slowly. Then, just as suddenly, it fell silent and dropped back into the sand. Tom picked it up again. "We cannot leave this here. Someone else might find it." Mira shook her head. "Throw it away." He looked at the ocean. "If it is connected to whatever they trapped, maybe we can end it by putting it back." Mira sighed. "You mean in the basement?" Tom nodded. "Yes. Maybe it needs to go back where it came from." Though every part of her wanted to run far away, she followed him back. The mansion looked darker now, even under daylight. The walls seemed to hum softly as they stepped inside. The basement door was still closed, but the faint blue light had returned. Tom placed his hand on the door. If this pendant caused the glow, maybe returning it will stop it. He opened the latch and stepped down carefully. Mira stayed at the top of the stairs, holding the flashlight. The air below was colder now, almost freezing. Tom reached the bottom and stood before the metal cylinder again. He placed the pendant on top of it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blue cracks in the floor began to fade. The glow dimmed slowly until the chamber was almost dark. Mira let out a sigh of relief. It is stopping. But before Tom could climb back up, the pendant flashed once more, brighter than before. The metal cylinder trembled, and a low sound filled the air. A voice echoed softly through the chamber. It was calm, but powerful. "Release complete," it said. Tom froze. "Mira, go," he shouted. She reached for his hand, but the floor shook violently. The pendant flew into the air and vanished in a burst of light. The metal cylinder split open, releasing a surge of blue mist that swirled around them. They ran up the stairs as the light filled the basement. When they slammed the door shut, the entire mansion shuddered and the hum spread through the walls. The chandeliers rattled and dust fell from the ceiling. Outside, the ocean began to roar again. Waves crashed against the rocks with unnatural force. The sky darkened even though it was still morning. Mira clung to Tom's arm. "What did you do?" He shook his head. "I think we set it free." The sound of the waves grew louder, like 1,000 drums beating in unison. The house creaked and groaned as if something massive was moving beneath it. Tom and Mira ran out onto the beach. The sea glowed faintly with streaks of blue light. The waves were no longer natural. They moved in patterns, forming circles around the shore. Tom turned back toward the mansion. "The Voss family did something here," he said. "They trapped something from the ocean, and now it is awake again." Mira stared at the glowing water. "Then what happens now?" Tom looked at the pendant that had reappeared in the sand near their feet. He picked it up again, feeling its warmth. The lines inside were no longer moving randomly. They formed a clear pattern, a map pointing to somewhere deep under the sea. He looked at Mira. "We need to find out what it wants." Mira's voice trembled. "You want to go back down there again?" Tom shook his head. The next morning, the sky over the beach was pale, the clouds thin and scattered. Tom and Mira had spent the night in their car, parked a short distance from the mansion. Neither of them had slept much. Their minds were filled with images of the glowing basement, the floating pendant, and the ocean that now pulsed with a strange, unnatural rhythm. Mira was the first to speak. "We cannot stay here forever. That house is dangerous." Tom nodded, still holding the pendant. Its surface was warm, and the moving lines inside formed patterns that reminded him of the ocean currents. "I know," he said. "But if we do not understand what is happening, leaving might not help. Whatever we awakened is connected to the mansion and the sea." "It is not done yet," Mira shivered. "I do not like this. It feels alive. I can almost hear it breathing." Tom agreed silently. He felt it too. The mansion had grown in their minds from a silent, abandoned house into something alive. The walls seemed to hum even from the distance. The wind carried a faint vibration that was not the sound of waves. After breakfast in the car, they approached the mansion carefully. The front door stood slightly ajar, though they had closed it the night before. Blue light flickered faintly from the cracks along the base. The moment they stepped onto the porch, the pendant pulsed in Tom's hand stronger than ever. "It is guiding us," he whispered. Mira did not respond. Her gaze stayed on the glowing mansion, fear written on her face. She followed Tom as he opened the door and stepped inside. The house was quiet, except for a faint humming that resonated through the floors. The chandeliers swayed slightly, though there was no wind inside. Tom moved through the hallway, holding the pendant in front of him. It floated slightly above his palm, spinning gently as if it had a mind of its own. The patterns inside formed shapes that reminded him of waves, then triangles, then lines connecting each other. He realized the pendant was showing him something. He followed it toward the staircase. Mira hesitated at the bottom. "Are you sure?" He turned to her. "Yes, I think it is leading us somewhere important." They climbed the stairs together. The second floor felt colder than the first. Shadows stretched along the walls, moving as though alive. In the main hallway, the pendant's glow became brighter and the hum louder. Tom stopped in front of the study door. It had been closed for years, but now it vibrated faintly. He pushed it open slowly. Inside, the air was thick and dust swirled in the light of the pendant. The old projector sat in the corner, silent and still. The shelves were full of books and papers, many of them open as if someone had been reading them recently. Then the pendant lifted higher in the air, spinning toward the center of the room. The moment it stopped, the papers on the desk rustled as if moved by an invisible hand. The lights in the room flickered and a soft glow appeared in the corner. Mira gasped. "What is that?" From the corner of the room, a figure slowly appeared. It was tall, thin, and luminous. Its body shimmered like water under sunlight, translucent yet bright. Its face was gentle, with glowing eyes that seemed intelligent and calm. Tom stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" he asked. The figure did not speak with words. Instead, a vibration passed through the air, entering their minds. Mira and Tom both heard it clearly, not as sound but as thought. "I am the guardian," it said. "The family trapped my kind here. They used the sea's power and locked us beneath this place. Many cycles have passed, and now you have awakened me." Mira stepped back. "What does that mean? Are you dangerous?" The figure tilted its head slightly. "I am not your enemy. The mansion is filled with energy from the ocean. It has grown restless because of the disturbance. I have been waiting for one who is not part of the family to arrive. You are here for a reason." Tom looked at Mira. "Why us?" The figure's glow pulsed. "The family sought to control us. They tried to use us to gain power, to dominate, to steal from the tide. Their plans failed. Their descendants are gone. You are not meant to stay here, but you have the courage to face what remains. You can help restore balance," Mira shivered. "Restore balance? How?" The figure floated closer. Its glow bathed the room in soft blue light. "Beneath the mansion, my companions are still contained. They need to be released. Once freed, the ocean will calm and the mansion will no longer pulse with restless energy." Tom swallowed hard. "And if we do not release them?" "The mansion will consume itself," the figure said. "The ocean will rise. All that is here will be lost. You will have only chaos to face." Mira gripped Tom's arm. "This is bigger than we imagined." The figure raised a hand. The walls around them shimmered faintly, and an image appeared on the floor. It was the basement chamber, the cylinder, and the cracks that glowed blue. Lines connected the pendant in Tom's hand to the cylinder. "It guides you," the figure said. "You must follow its path. You must place it above the core of the containment. Only then will the energy flow correctly and my companions can awaken safely." Tom nodded slowly. "We can do this," he said. Mira hesitated. "It is dangerous. The floor was shaking yesterday. What if it moves again?" The figure's glow softened. "Courage is required. Fear is natural, but it will not serve you here. Trust in yourselves. Trust in the bond you share." Tom and Mira exchanged a glance. Their hands brushed as they held the pendant together. They made their way back to the basement. This time the air felt different. It was thick, electric, and alive. Every step they took made the hum grow stronger. The staircase seemed longer, and the shadows along the walls stretched and danced. When they reached the bottom, the chamber greeted them with an intense blue glow. The cracks in the floor pulsed like veins spreading across the stone. The cylinder in the center shimmered faintly, waiting. Tom stepped forward. "This is it," he said. Mira nodded, though her hands shook. "Are you sure this will work?" Tom looked at the pendant. Its glow matched the cracks in the floor. The lines inside moved toward a central point, forming the shape of the cylinder. He held it above the metal, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the cylinder pulsed and the mist inside swirled like water. The pendant floated higher, spinning above the cylinder. The blue mist formed shapes that resembled figures, tall, bright, and shimmering. They were beings of light like the guardian, waiting to be released. The hum grew louder, but it was no longer frightening. It was a song, a rhythm of the ocean itself. Mira stepped closer. "They are beautiful," Tom nodded. "We did not create this, but we can help them." The pendant sank slowly into the center of the cylinder. The blue glow spread outward, filling the chamber. The figures rose, floating above the floor. They shimmered and moved gracefully as if testing their freedom. The hum became a powerful vibration, resonating with every stone and pipe in the mansion. Suddenly, a pulse of energy shot through the walls. The floor trembled beneath them, but it was different now. The trembling was not chaotic. It was steady, controlled, like the mansion itself was breathing in rhythm with the figures. The guardian appeared before them again. "You have done well. The containment is lifted. My companions are free. Balance returns." Tom and Mira felt a warmth spread through them. The fear and tension that had held them for days began to dissolve. The basement no longer felt cold. The blue light softened into a gentle glow. Mira smiled, her relief evident. "It is over," the guardian nodded. "Not over, but renewed. You have witnessed the power that humans often take for granted. Courage, curiosity, and compassion have allowed you to restore what was lost." Tom looked at Mira. "We never imagined this would happen. A house, a pendant, and Them, Mira laughed softly. And we thought it was just a cheap mansion by the beach. The beings of light rose slowly, moving toward the ceiling, then toward the cracks that led back to the ocean. The hum faded into the gentle sound of waves returning to normal. The mansion itself seemed to sigh as if finally at peace. The pendant floated back to Tom's hand. Its lines no longer moved. It was calm. The guardian spoke one last time. Keep this. It will guide you if ever the balance is disturbed again. But it is yours to protect, not to control. Tom nodded. We will. Mira held his hand. Can we leave now? Yes, the guardian said. The tide has returned to its natural state. The mansion is yours to leave, but remember what you have witnessed. Respect the ocean and what lies beneath it. They climbed the stairs and stepped outside. The morning sun was bright, the beach quiet. The waves rolled gently, their rhythm natural again. The mansion stood silent, peaceful, and no longer seemed alive. Tom and Mira looked at each other, smiling with relief and wonder. They had faced the unknown, confronted fear, and helped release a force that had been trapped for decades. The mansion behind them was no longer a prison, but a memory, a story they would carry forever. Tom picked up the pendant one last time and held it close. We did it, he whispered. Mira nodded. Yes, we did it together. The ocean hummed softly, a gentle reminder that life, courage, and curiosity could awaken even the deepest mysteries. They turned away from the mansion and walked down the beach. Behind them, the waves crashed against the rocks, not violently but calmly, as if the sea itself was thankful. The world felt larger, brighter, and full of possibilities, and they knew this was only the beginning of the stories they would tell. After the morning that changed everything, Tom and Mira walked along the beach, their feet sinking into the soft sand. The mansion stood behind them, silent and still, its windows reflecting the rising sun. For the first time in days, they felt free from fear, though the memory of the glowing basement and the beings of light lingered in their minds. Tom held the pendant carefully in his hand. It no longer glowed, but he knew its power remained within. The lines inside formed a calm, steady pattern, like the waves rolling gently against the shore. We should keep this safe, he said quietly. It helped guide us. Who knows what it could do if left unguarded? Mira nodded. We will. But what do we do now? We cannot exactly sell this house to someone else. They might awaken something dangerous again. Tom glanced back at the mansion. Maybe it is better left alone. We can keep it as it is and make sure no one disturbs it again. The ocean will take care of itself, and the mansion will wait for anyone who is truly ready to understand it. They walked toward their car, the sand cool beneath their feet. The air smelled of salt and fresh water, calm and peaceful. The sound of the waves was steady and natural, no longer pulsing like the strange rhythm they had heard the day before. For a while, neither of them spoke. The events of the past days seemed almost unreal. A mansion bought for $250, a hidden laboratory, the glowing pendant, and the beings of light all seemed like pieces of a dream. Yet in their hands and minds, the evidence was undeniable. Finally, Mira broke the silence. Do you think the mansion will ever wake again? Tom thought for a moment. Only if someone disturbs it. Only if someone comes with fear or greed. We acted with courage and respect. That is why it trusted us. Mira smiled faintly. We did the right thing. They reached the car and packed their remaining bags. The engine started smoothly this time, and they drove slowly down the winding road away from the mansion. Every turn revealed the beach stretching wide and empty, the ocean calm under the morning sun. After a few miles, they stopped at a small cafe by the shore. The warm aroma of fresh bread and coffee filled the air. They ordered breakfast and sat by a window overlooking the sea. Tom picked up the pendant and turned it over in his hand. I wonder how many others were trapped like that, he said. The notebooks mentioned cycles, energy, and subjects. The Voss family must have experimented for decades. Mira sipped her coffee, thoughtful. It is amazing that we even made it through. The mansion tried to warn us in so many ways, yet we listened carefully and acted together. Maybe that is why we survived. Tom nodded. Courage, curiosity, and respect. The beings said that themselves. It seemed simple, but it worked. They finished breakfast quietly, enjoying the ordinary world after days filled with extraordinary events. Yet both knew that the pendant in Tom's hand was a reminder that not all mysteries were solved. Some secrets of the ocean and the mansion remained, waiting for those who were ready to face them. Back in their car, Tom carefully wrapped the pendant in a soft cloth and placed it in a small box. Mira held it while they drove, the sun warming the interior. "It feels lighter now," she said. "Like the mansion is at peace." Tom smiled. "It is. But we need to remember it is not just a trinket. It is a key, a guide, and a protector. We have a responsibility to keep it safe." Mira nodded. "And we will. Together." As they drove farther from the mansion, the sound of the waves faded into the distance. The small coastal town began to appear ahead, bustling with morning activity. People walked on the streets, children played near the park, and birds soared in the sky. The world was ordinary again, but both Tom and Mira carried the memory of the mansion and the ocean in their hearts. That evening, they returned to a small apartment they rented in town. They unpacked, hung their clothes, and carefully stored the pendant in a secure drawer. The lines inside it were calm, steady, and reassuring. They knew it would not act unless called upon. Tom sat on the couch, looking out the window at the ocean in the distance. "Do you think anyone will ever know what we faced?" he asked. Mira shook her head. "No, and that is okay. Some things are meant to remain hidden, preserved by those who understand them. We were lucky to witness it, but the world does not need to know all the secrets of the sea." Tom smiled faintly. "True, but it feels good to have made a difference, even if quietly." The next morning, they returned to the beach to watch the sunrise. The waves rolled gently, golden light reflecting off the water. Tom held Mira's hand, feeling the warmth of the sun and the calmness of the sea. As they walked along the sand, he noticed something unusual. Small patterns of light shimmered beneath the water, tiny glimmers that looked like faint stars reflected in the shallows. He paused, watching them carefully. Mira saw him stop. "What is it?" Tom smiled. "The ocean is alive in ways we cannot always see. Maybe it is thanking us, or maybe it is just reminding us of its power. Either way, it feels peaceful." They walked farther along the beach, letting the waves lap at their feet. No shadows moved, no humming sounded. The mansion was gone from sight, silent and calm in the distance. They felt a sense of completion, as if the adventure had ended naturally, leaving the world unchanged on the surface, but profoundly altered in their hearts. As days passed, Tom and Mira settled into their routine. They worked, explored the town, and shared stories with neighbors, but at night they sometimes sat by the window watching the ocean and remembered the mansion, the glowing pendant, and the beings of light. It was a secret shared between them, a memory that bound them together more strongly than any ordinary experience could. One afternoon, they returned to the beach with the box containing the pendant. They dug a small hole near a secluded stretch of sand, far from anyone else, and placed the pendant inside. Tom covered it with sand, leaving only a faint shimmer visible. "Now it rests," he said. Mira smiled, "And so do we." They walked back hand in hand, leaving the pendant in a place where it could remain safe, hidden yet connected to the ocean's rhythm. It was not lost nor abandoned. It was simply waiting, as guardians often do, for the next moment it might be needed. Weeks passed, and the mansion became just a story in their minds. The town, the beach, and the ocean returned to their quiet routine. Tom and Mira continued their lives, strengthened by the shared experience, aware that courage and respect could shape the world in ways most people never saw. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the waves glimmered faintly once more, not in danger, not in warning, but as a reminder that the ocean held mysteries deeper than anyone could imagine. Mira leaned against Tom's shoulder. "Do you think it will ever call again?" Tom held her close. "Perhaps, and if it does, we will be ready, together." The stars reflected on the water, and the ocean hummed softly, carrying its endless secrets into the night. The mansion, the pendant, and the beings of light had become a part of their lives, not as a threat, but as a story of courage, trust, and discovery. In the quiet, they understood something important. The world was larger than it seemed, filled with wonders and mysteries. Sometimes the bravest thing was to listen, to act carefully, and to trust not only in oneself but in those you care about. Tom and Mira walked along the beach until the sky turned dark, the sound of the waves their companion. Behind them, the mansion waited silently, the secret it had guarded now restored. And beneath the waves, the ocean kept its balance, alive with possibilities, mysteries, and the soft glow of light that would always remind them of the adventure that had changed their lives forever. As they returned home that night, the pendant safely hidden, they knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. The mansion's story, the Voss family's secrets, and the beings of light would remain with them, guiding them, reminding them that courage, respect, and curiosity could awaken even the deepest mysteries in the world. And so their lives returned to normal. But the memory of the mansion, the ocean, and the glowing pendant never faded. In quiet moments when the wind was just right and the waves hummed gently, they felt the world alive in a way most people never would, and they smiled, knowing they had done something remarkable together.